The never-ending cycle of the transfer portal. Well, it will end eventually. It'll close on April 30th, and then we'll see how many players exit the portal after April 30th. But they can enter for still 4 more days as this show gets released. And the latest is former 5-star LSU running back John Emery Jr.
John Emery Jr., the 6th-year running back out of LSU, has entered the transfer portal. I'm Caroline Fenton, host of Locked On LSU. And what makes John Emery Jr. so special is not just his initial burst in quickness as a runner off of the line of scrimmage, it's also his abilities as a pass-catching running back. In 2022, he caught for 129 yards, his best season as a receiver on just 13 receptions, good for about 10 yards per catch. Even this past season in 2023, he had a 49-yard reception. He's at his best in early downs, maybe in 1st and 10 or 2nd and 6 kind of situations. But the one thing with John Emery Jr. is that he is coming off of an ACL tear. He tore his ACL in November of this past season, so John Emery Jr. may not be available medically at the beginning of the season, but any team that lands him will be getting a player with 28 games of starting experience.
That's a lot of experience for a guy in the portal, for a former 5-star recruit. Now, the injury component makes this intriguing because would he go into the transfer portal and seek a new home if he didn't feel he was going to be ready to play? Because if you couldn't go somewhere or you didn't feel confident you were going to be able to land somewhere and, get a scholarship opportunity to play football, then you probably wouldn't be leaving LSU. So you might hear, Caroline talk in that clip about the injury and think, well, I don't know, that's a little bit risky there, perhaps. But I really, unless he is thinking about just not playing football, or maybe he goes somewhere where they understand, look, we're not going to have you till October or the middle of September. Now, ACL tears can be 6-month injuries for some guys. They can be 12-month injuries for some guys. They could be 14-month injury. It depends on who you are. If you got hurt in November, and let's say 9 is kind of standard, you'd be ready around August time. So it'd certainly be a late install into the offense. But a guy like John Emery Jr. is exactly the sort of player that a lot of schools are looking for in the backfield. Talent and production, both proven at the highest level. So John Emery Jr., I'd certainly expect him to land in a really solid spot. Here's something that's going to surprise you, especially for my everydayers out there. Wait for it. There's a Colorado player in the transfer portal. The Buffs making moves in the portal. I can't believe it. I actually can believe this one more than Dylan Edwards, who I talked about on yesterday's show.
Colorado running back Alton McCaskill has decided to enter his name into the college football transfer portal. I'm Kevin Borba, host of Locked On Buffs, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Mr. McCaskill. The Conroe, Texas native was a 3-star recruit that ranked as the 406th player in the country, number 27 running back, and the number 57 player in the state of Texas. He chose Houston over offers, a plethora of offers. He had over 32 offers. He had schools like Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Kansas State, SMU coming after him, but he chose to go to Houston, and it paid off for him in a big way. In 2021, he had 189 carries for 961 yards and 16 touchdowns and earned American Freshman of the Year. He then missed the next season due to injury, transferred to Colorado, where he only had 14 carries for 59 yards, missed pretty much all the season due to injury. Coach Prime said he wasn't ready, so we never really got to see him get going. In Colorado, he was expected to have a major role this upcoming season for the Buffs, but decided it was time to move on. If your team lands him, you're getting one of the most prolific running backs in the country when healthy. If he's healthy, he could be a game changer, and that is something that every team can use.
Again, questions about injuries at the running back position. That can be a theme. Running back and linebacker are usually two of the most banged up positions because of the collisions that they take and that they deliver on a play-to-play basis in college football, and that applies to the NFL as well. It's why running backs don't get paid very often in the NFL because, well, they don't have a particularly long shelf life. Ezekiel Elliott, of course, comes to mind. But Alton McCaskill is not someone I thought would go into the transfer portal, or Dylan Edwards. And, Colorado added Ohio State transfer Dallin Hayden. That move is looking more and more important by the day because they had Anthony Hankerson transfer out. He was a depth piece at running back who was, pretty solid last year. He went to Oregon State. And then Dylan Edwards went into the portal. He was the guy, remember, that caught that 4th and 2 long touchdown to secure the win against TCU for the Buffs in Fort Worth when they kind of put the world on notice for, hey, Colorado might be better than everybody thinks. And, we know how the rest of the season went. But Dylan Edwards is a guy that's got tremendous potential. He's in the portal. And then Alton McCaskill goes into the portal. Suddenly Colorado kind of thin at the running back position. And look, these are guys that can go somewhere and produce right away. I've seen Dylan Edwards play football at the Power 5 level. I've seen Alton McCaskill produce at a high level when healthy throughout the course of the year. All three of those guys, John Emery Jr., Alton McCaskill, Dylan Edwards, maybe Edwards a little less so because he's a tad smaller, but these are all starting caliber running backs. These are all guys that can play not just a role, but a significant role in your offense this year. So if you're a team that's looking for a running back in the transfer portal, there's some real options right now. There are some real options out there. Also a name to mention, Isaiah Newell from Oregon State. He's been a rotation guy, hasn't really played a ton the last couple of years, but talking about the depth situation, he'd fit in perfectly at Colorado. If he could go be a number 2 or 3 running back, that's kind of where he's been. He's been a bit further down on the depth chart so far, but a lot of running backs. Don't forget Damian Martinez has not taken his name out of the transfer portal yet because he's still looking for what his next home will be. Miami's been the front runner for quite a while, but running backs galore, starting caliber guys, not just depth pieces, but certainly those players are available as well. A couple other names to be aware of. Did you see what Missouri did? Probably not. That's why I'm telling you here on the show. Missouri's got a big win total, according to our friends at FanDuel. It's actually 9.5. Yeah, that's. You did not mishear me. It's a pretty big win total for the Missouri Tigers in the SEC, but guess what? They're bolstering their profile to try and live up to that sort of hype. So they have landed a commitment from another SMU transfer offensive lineman, Marcus Bryant. So Bryant was an all-AAC lineman last year. You want to talk about the value of group of 5 schools and the ability to elevate kids' profiles in college football? This is according to Sports Illustrated. The former Mustang was a low-ranked 3-star recruit in the class of 2020, only holding offers from SMU and Incarnate Word, which is an FCS program. He had interest from Arizona State as well, but it does not appear that there was an offer there. He was immediately a hot commodity in the transfer portal, holding offers from TCU, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Washington, and others. Bryant held a prediction to commit to Washington on 24/7 Sports, which is a position group that Locked On Huskies host Roman Tomashoff has spoken on this show about as being a need for the Huskies in the spring portal window. This was the guy they were going after, and Missouri snatched him up. This is a huge get up front for the Missouri Tigers. You've got Brady Cook coming back. You've got Luther Burden coming back. Eli Drinkowitz is feeling great after an 11-win season. Can't ever forget about the trenches, and Missouri is not, especially when you're playing in the SEC. You go get a guy that was coveted by other SEC or Big Ten programs. Yeah, there's a reason that Marcus Bryant had offers from those sorts of places. He's going to step in and start right away for Missouri. That's an impact player. He's an offensive lineman. He's not going to put up crazy stats, but that still makes him an impact player. Speaking of the group of 5 level, so Brendan Sullivan is a name most of you probably don't remember. He was a part of one of the more forgettable college football seasons in recent memory, and it took place at Northwestern. Of course, they just underwent maybe the greatest individual turnaround in a single season that we've seen in college football lately under David Braun. They went from 1-11 to 8-5. Like that's where does that happen? Like Colorado had a good turnaround. They went from 1 to 4 wins. They were a much better team. Northwestern, which is a harder place to bring in players than Colorado, especially in the transfer portal, went from 1-11 to 8-5. They did a heck of a job. Now, a quarterback during that 1-11 season for the Wildcats was Brendan Sullivan. He was the presumed starter for the Wildcats this year, and he's got 2 years of eligibility remaining, so he's going to hit the transfer portal. Now, is he going to be a highly coveted target? I think most places have got their quarterback situation pretty set. He's 6'3", 225 pounds. He debuted as a sophomore in 2022, completed 74% of his passes, not for a ton of yards, but 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions amidst a struggled year. He was battling with Ben Bryant for the starting quarterback position a season ago and was ultimately the backup. But this is a guy that, to me, screams group of 5. Not because he isn't a talented player. I just talked about the sorts of players that can roll through the group of 5 ranks. But a guy who is at a Power 5 school that they thought he would be the starter and now doesn't have a starting job locked up. I would watch for a group of 5 school that can make some noise in whichever conference he lands in to go and pick up a guy like Brendan Sullivan. That's the latest quarterback in the transfer portal. There haven't really been many. Have not been many. Of course, Jaden Rashada find his way to Georgia, which I think is an outstanding spot for him to land. But Brendan Sullivan, quarterback name, not to be overlooked in the portal. Curious to see where he lands. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.